tonight on Novelty Search, we're going to have Ref. And so we're going to wait for him to get in here. He should be here any moment. It's probably in the middle of the night for him. This is going to be an interesting chat with Ref because we're going to go into the deep internals of Bittensor's Yuma Consensus itself. Let's get him up on stage. So many people know Ref, especially if you're building on Bittensor, you know who Ref is because he's in and around this ecosystem, sniffing everywhere, and is incredibly knowledgeable of Bittensor. I mean, nobody is really capable of upgrading Yuma Consensus unless you are fairly familiar with the deep internals of Bittensor itself. But Ref hasn't just been doing that. Ref also maintains he actually wrote commit reveal 2 and is in the deployment phase for commit reveal 3, which is going to be something that comes and works well in conjunction with Yuma 3, YC3. He's also the leader of the Church of Route Discord for Bittensor developers. He runs that. He's been the driving force of eliminating weight copying across the ecosystem now for almost over a year. And he's also one of the first compute subnets on Bittensor, Subnet 12. You can also check out some of the projects he's made, the Grafana back tensor, which a lot of people really enjoy. And I will say, it's kind of a funny story how me and Ref met. I hired him off Upwork and then stupidly fired him. And then he said, well, that was a bad idea. So I'm just going to come save your ass and help build Bittensor from the inside. Well, anyway, so without further ado, here's the great, the terrible Ref. Ref, can you unmute yourself and speak? Is the mic good? I guess the answer is no. Well, then I can just keep on going on and on about Ref. But let's talk a little bit about Yuma Consensus. So YC1.
Testing. Does it work now?
Yeah, it's coming in. Ref, maybe I can give a bit of an introduction to what YC means.
Very good.
So YC1 is the consensus mechanism that you can see in the Bittensor's white paper. Quite flawed, YC1. Very good platform for building additional consensus mechanisms, but we tested the limits of that in 2021, and it was Taco who actually came in and upgraded and improved to YC2. YC2 allowed us to really stop exploiters, specifically on the validator side through the bonds. And that was when we first got bonds into Bittensor at large. But there are some issues with YC2, which is the current consensus mechanism, if people know about it. One of them is that it's very myopically focused on making the validators agree. It's not that focused on making them agree by doing the validation process. Hence weight copiers. Hence, hey, well, I'll just agree and do no work. And weight copying has been a bit of a plague on Bittensor for a while. And that didn't sit well with Ref here. And so he's been focusing on commit reveal and YC3 for a little while. So anyways, without further ado, here's Ref. If you can unmute yourself, Ref, and do a bit of introduction and get people into this talk. It's going to be a deep one. I hope people stick around all the way to the end.
Right. So I have some slides. Okay, let's go. Today we'll be talking about 4 things, basically. The order is a little bit weird. We'll start with Collateral smart contract. And then we're going to talk about Yuma 3 and Liquid Alpha 2.0. Then we're going to talk about what it means for the ecosystem. And finally, we'll mention the DDoS shield. So let's jump in. Collateral smart contract is something that Bittensor needed for a really long time. Currently in Bittensor, if you find a way to cheat in a subnet, you can farm emissions until they catch you, and at that point they catch you off, but you can already run out with the money, and that's not good. And some subnets hurt because of this situation very much, and it's a game of cat and mouse. And whenever the subnet owner modifies the code to patch an exploit. The miners find another exploit, and the subnet owner is focused on, patching up exploits, and the miners are focused on exploiting the subnet. And this is not what Bittensor is about. So the Collateral smart contract allows the subnet owner and the validators to deploy a mechanism which tells miners that they have to pay in, let's say, 5 tau as a security deposit, and then they can pay it out later if they don't want to mine the subnet anymore. But if they cheat, then they won't be able to pay it out. If they are caught cheating, then the validators will burn the collateral. So now there will be a cost to cheating, and this should change quite a few things. Now, this is the first smart contract that is tightly integrated with the subnet. We had to add 4 features to the subtensor to make it work, but it works. Here's a chart that looks a little bit scary. It contains deployment of the smart contract. Then the miner can make sure that this is the right address to send the collateral to. And there is a separate key for SS58 that everybody knows. This is the Polkadot key that we use in Bittensor. And in order to use the smart contracts, you need to use an EVM key, which has another format called H160. And we provide scripts for all of that. The miners won't have to do all of this by themselves. So it is easy to operate, but it is a little bit complicated, but also very powerful. Not just that, we can deploy a bunch of other things. I've seen some other subnets already talking about the capacitor contract, which only gives out the rewards later and not instantly. So which is like collateral contract, but from the other side. And we've even built a dashboard that you can see right now, and it shows for our subnet, but actually other subnets can deploy the same smart contract. And we have even tried to burn some collateral, and you can see that the green miner has paid in some collateral, and then the validators burned it, and then he has less now. And also the yellow miner also has paid in some collateral. So some tasks are only going to be namely the organic tasks. They are only going to be distributed to the miners which paid in the collateral. And this will disincentivize them to cheat. Now let's talk about Yuma 3. But in order to talk about Yuma 3, we first have to talk about Yuma 1 and Yuma 2. So let's begin with Yuma 1. We will look at a couple of charts that look like this one. So let me explain what happens here. There are 3 validators, and there are only 2 miners, which in Yuma are called servers. So bear with me. There is a big validator, the blue one, that has 80% stake, and the other 2 validators have 10% of the stake. In Yuma 1, if the small eager validator, he discovered a new best miner, so he's voting on him, his vtrust falls to 0, and his APY, so to speak, dividends, they also fall to 0. But and then when he's voting along with the blue, which is the big validator, his dividends are restored. But overall, at the end, the eager validator and the the late validator, the dotted one, they lose towards the big validator, right? So the eager validator did a better job, and the lazy validator did a worse job, but the best paid validator was the big validator. This makes sense in some cases. So for example, Subnet 68, they can evaluate all the solutions of all the miners perfectly in 10 seconds. And they run competitions in every tempo. They run a different competition, and so, or like several tempos, but the performance of the miner can be verified very quickly. They can use Yuma 1. It's no problem. And you can actually force Yuma 1 by setting a hyperparameter. But if we have a subnet in which the miners submit models and validators are unable to analyze all of them because it's too much work, then the validators kind of cooperate with each other. And the idea is that the validator who discovers the new leader first should be rewarded for it. And as you see on this chart, the orange validator was not rewarded for it. Now, unfortunately, that's how it should work. So he should be compensated extra. But this is the output of a simulator that was running Yuma 2. And I noticed it, I think, in September. I was analyzing like some charts in Grafana, and I realized that there was one validator run by Bittensor Guru podcast, and on Subnet 9, they actually started voting first for a new leader, but they got penalized for it. And I couldn't understand why. And I looked into it closely. Turns out Yuma 2 doesn't really work the way we all thought it works. So the lazy validator, the one that was late, he loses a lot of dividends. Yeah. So this is about 2 days. He lost 26% over 2 days. That's a lot. But the orange validator, the eager one, wasn't really compensated higher. Again, the big validator won. But actually, it's a little bit worse than that, because if the validators would switch back from the second miner to the first miner, this is what I observed what happened. The orange validator is penalized here once because he was first and something didn't work right. And then everybody switched at the same time, and the orange validator was penalized again. So that was weird. And we took several attempts to figure out how to fix it. And eventually we came up with Yuma 3. And in Yuma 3, it looks basically like that. So the orange validator, at first, he's penalized a little bit. He loses a little bit of dividends because Yuma thinks that maybe he started voting on his miner friend or something. But then when everybody switches, the Yuma 3 rewards the orange validator, gives him like a significantly more dividends. And you can change the shape of this curve with hyperparameters. So yeah, that's basically Yuma 3 in like a short version of the description. Now, this chart that you can see, it contains like 20 scenarios and all of the Yuma versions, and you can type in hyperparameters and you can run the simulation yourself and see how it would behave in different scenarios. I will provide the link to the simulator for everybody in the chat at the end of the presentation, but I don't want everybody to click right now because maybe we will be showing something, and I don't want it to be DDoSed, you know. Okay, so that is Yuma 3. what Liquid Alpha 2 does. It basically does the same thing as Liquid Alpha 1.0 was supposed to do. So it changes the rate of acquisition of bonds depending on something. And this something has been changed from one technical indicator to another. And so how to say, in Liquid Alpha 1.0, in some cases, it actually changed the rate of acquisition in such a way that it was beneficial. So the statistical correlation with rewarding honest miners has been shown, but in some rare cases it actually made things worse. Now the changed implementation accurately adjusts the rate of acquisition of bonds. So if someone is late setting weights to a particular miner, then they will be, like a subnet owner can set the size of penalty. Now what it means is subnet validators will have to be more vigilant, and they will have to take care of their subtensors and make sure that they have enough memory and monitor their nodes. If a miner loses a single request on some subnets, they get deregistered. And validators, so far, it's been tolerated that, okay, didn't set weights for an hour. Okay, well, that's no longer going to be the case. If your validator is not going to be setting weights, then it's actually harming the ecosystem, because the stake is saying that some miner is the best, but maybe this miner changed already, and there is another miner now that is the best, but you're still voting on the old one, and this slows down the subnet, and we don't want the subnets to be slow, because then the miners are not motivated as much to move faster. Now, so it's a new era because validators will compete now. It used to be that, like, the thing that validators try to do is find the cheapest possible hardware on which they can get away with on running a validator of a given subnet. But now validators will compete, and so as you have seen on the chart, if a validator is late, it's going to be penalized. If a validator is eager and he's finding the new miner early, he's going to be rewarded. Now, I'm gonna show some charts of some subnets. This is subnet 7, and you can see that there is a specific pattern here. So when miners get deregistered, subnet 7 doesn't immediately give them the full weight. They take some time to figure out what the quality of the miner is going to be. And how to say, this is not a very good design for an incentive mechanism, because someone can guess that a miner that has just been registered, his performance as perceived by the subnet is going to increase over time at a very specific rate, and they can react to it faster. And then when they will react to it faster, they will farm more dividends than an honest validator. So in this case, and in cases of other subnets which use EMA or they average the results over time, they average the results over time because they don't have enough compute to get like a sure measurement in the first tempo after the miner submits a model. But if someone will have 2 GPUs or 4 GPUs or 8 GPUs, and they will verify the same miner in a sure way quickly, they will be able to assign an appropriate weight early on. And this is a good piece of work done by a validator. And then the validator should be rewarded for that. And now it will be possible. This is like a zoom in, which shows over time that validators were slowly applying the weight, but it was possible to do it faster. Yeah. And this is another subnet 9. So here it looks a little bit like wake copiers. So a given miner is performing very well, and then his performance kind of decreases over time. I think it's the validators which wait copy slowly stop voting on the given miner. But at least they switch quite quickly. Yeah, you can see that. Well, you can't actually see because it's running on Yuma too. But there is another view that I'm trying to make in Grafana that will show the validators that were clipped, and they discovered the miner before everybody else did. But yeah, Subnet 9, as you can see, it was very static for a few days, and then about 3.5 days ago, they deployed a major change. So it's much more dynamic, and it's going to be harder for wait copiers to follow that. So their performance is going to decrease. If they enable commit reveal, if they enable liquid alpha 2.0, I'm sure the wait copiers are going to run away. And this is the same thing, but zoomed in a little bit. Okay. Now, compute Horde is a subnet which allows the validators to use GPUs of miners, but in a quite specific way. And nowadays, with the Collateral smart contract, the miners will be prohibited from faking the results of the computation, because if they do that, then we're going to burn their collateral, and we do cross-verify portions of the work of the miners. So we will find them pretty quickly, and then we will burn them if they cheat. So if we have miners that they will not cheat, otherwise they will burn a lot of money doing that, then we can validate other subnets using compute Horde. But we don't have to use exactly one GPU. We can use 10 GPUs for 5 minutes and then use none of them. Some subnets, they don't require a full-time GPU actually. So the process of Hordization, so allowing the subnet to be validated on compute Horde, because it has to be verifiable so that we can ensure that the miners are going to do a good job. We remove from the process of validation, we remove the access to network, which is typically downloading of a model. So the data is put in form of a volume. There is an SDK for that. Join Subnet 12 channel and chat us about it. So we will show you the documentation on how to do it. And then the job for evaluation itself needs to be run in a Docker container. And we've Hordized Subnet 15 and a couple of other subnets to see that it works. And yes, you can run validators on it, but the fun part begins where you start using multiple GPUs. So you use async IO to await for a result of evaluation of a miner, and at the same time you can do another miner. And the limit is only how much the Subnet 12 miners, how much capacity are they going to give to the validator, yeah? And that depends on how much effective stake the validator has in subnet 12. So, but someone can say, well, what about the situation? Let's say we have subnet, I don't know, 17, yeah? And there is a validator on subnet 17 that is not validating on subnet 12. Can he use compute Horde? Well, yes, but he has to have an agreement with some other validator that will whitelist their key, so they can buy a portion of the capacity. And then if it fails, if compute Horde doesn't work, the validator should still be able to work. So it's we have a PR for that. We didn't finish testing yet, so it's not yet merged, but we have a fallback to run pod. And what it means is the validation will still work. It won't use free GPUs, but for a moment it will provision paid ones. But it can still be parallelized, and you can regulate how much parallelization you want when running on compute Horde and how much parallelization you want when running on runpod. Now, using this, you can actually run a validator that uses less than one GPU. If there's no models submitted by miners for a long time, then you like this job of evaluating a miner is executed once, or like once per tempo or something, but for the rest of the time, the GPU is not needed. So in compute Horde, it's more economical because the miners can turn it off. If we're going to have 1,000 subnets in DTAO one day, then running a dedicated GPU for all of them is probably not going to work very well. Especially if for some subnets we need to use multiple of them, and at times we have to use more, sometimes we need to use less. There needs to be something that will allow subnet owners to write validation code which will utilize as much compute as whoever is deploying the validator is going to put at it. And then eventually we will find equilibrium. So some validators are going to say, okay, I'm going to run it on 4 GPUs, and some other validator is going to say, okay, I'm going to run it on 2. Maybe it's going to be good enough. And eventually the guy with 4 graphics cards, he can say, well, it's too much, right? I'm validating it in one tempo, but the guy with 2 graphics cards is also validating it in one tempo. So it's not worth to host 4 of them. It can also vary. So some subnets have like slow days and busy days. And on some days they submit 3 models, and on some other days they submit 300. And compute Horde basically allows you to use as many resources as the validator operator dedicates to the given subnet. Now, the Collateral smart contract helps to guard it. It makes it possible. Without this, with a low registration price of 0.05 tau, as we have on most subnets, miners from subnet 17 could try to register on subnet 12 and intercept the validation jobs and give each other some points, but it won't work, and they will be penalized, and then we will catch them and we will rerun it on another miner. So yeah, so someone will say, "Oh, what about TEE? What about ZK?" Well, this works with pretty high performance. ZK is very slow, and TEE only, like, it's very difficult to set it up. So like doing this at scale, you'd have to prepare an encrypted virtual machine for every subnet, teach everybody there are problems with parallelization. So this is a practical solution that we can apply right now. Maybe one day we will add TEE to it to secure the data as well. Okay, and the DDoS shield is a thing which allows the miners to publish different IP addresses for every validator. So if there's 5 validators, then the miner automatically acquires 5 IPs and encrypts them with public keys of those validators and uploads them somewhere, basically. So then the validators download the document, they find the entry that is encrypted with their key, and they decrypt it. And then they communicate with the miner using that IP that only they know. Now, if a validator starts attacking, DDoSing a miner, then only he knew that IP. So the miner knows that this validator is actually trying to kill it. And with one command, they can just exclude that validator. This IP is kind of like recycled, disconnected. A new document is published with new IPs, but it only has 4 entries because that miner no longer serves the validator that it has banned. Miners will not see each other's IP addresses anymore. Miners won't be able to DDoS each other because they don't know the address. And this is not like a matter of a firewall where your CPU is still dropping the packets, or your miner machine can have a limited network connection or something like that. You just don't know the address. You can't attack it. Okay. I think that's the last slide.
Wow. Holy moly, Ref.
Yeah.
There's so much here. We talked about Yuma Consensus, we talked about Compute Horde, we talked about DDoS protection. The update to Yuma Consensus will profoundly change the ecosystem, and people shouldn't underestimate how it will affect people. I think in a very positive way, right? Making validation competitive, and we're going in the right direction. Like there'll be YC3 or YC4. You wanted to call it YC4, I believe, but we didn't go through YC3 yet.
Yeah, we didn't have a 3 yet, so it was weird.
Yeah. So what do you think would be the first effect of this launching?
Well, when subnet owners start enabling this, if they enable commit reveal just for one tempo, and they enable Yuma 3, then the weight copiers, their weights are going to start. Their dividends are going to start dropping. So because nowadays subnet owners are TAO holders also, then they will earn more alphas, right? Because there's the same amount of alphas coming from dividends every tempo, and now a bigger share is going to go to the subnet owner and to the honest validators. That's the general idea.
That's the general idea. And so this would push this. Let's get Capricious on the stage. I think we should get him up here because it's worthwhile to hear. Maybe he'll come up. There he is, Capricious.
Hello.
I think of all the people in the ecosystem that have the most number of questions, but maybe not because you know the stuff inside out, and also you've spoken to Ref many times. But how would you describe this change and what it means for you as a major validator in the ecosystem?
I'll admit I am actually a little bit concerned about a few things. Mainly because, for the most part, there's a growing number of subnets that have essentially only 3 or 4 validators on them. There's Rizzo, Roundtable, Yuma, and the subnet owner. There's a number of them. That's pretty much it. And then the rest of the validators are all child hotkeying to a mix of those 4. The issue that we're seeing on a number of subnets is that the owner validator is starting to amass a very significant stake. On some, it is such a super majority that it's rendering things quite difficult to actually do our job properly. I won't name names because I've already yelled at them. So what my concern is there is that as soon as it becomes like, we want wait copying to go away. I'm one of the loudest and most annoying people yelling at the fact that I would like to see wait copies thrown into the ocean. My concern is that this is just going to shift a lot of them to child hotkeying to the owner key. And then that's going to end up with more sort of situations where we're going to have those 80 to 90% wait on the owner key. And then the remaining validators then are sort of forced into situations where they have to try and outspend with having more GPUs, or that we end up sort of needing to use Horde, which I am concerned about whether or not it becomes a central point of failure. That if we have, say, 300 subnets using Horde, what happens if something goes wrong with Horde? And it mainly ends up being, but then that means 300 subnets suddenly switching to run pod, where at the moment I have a data center that I've filled with GPUs, and that's been my goal. And trying to avoid needing to use run pod. That it takes us from being, we've sort of worked towards the last 2 years becoming as self-reliant as possible in our apocalypse-proof bunker. This renders that impossible in a lot of respects. That essentially what we'll have to do is we'll have to take our pool of GPUs that we have here in our bunker, register them as a miner on SN12, then through our validator on SN12, essentially be renting back our GPUs from that subnet, and then using them as a sort of pooled resource as and where needed. And if anything happens there, then it's then forced off to a third-party provider run pod rather than using the infrastructure here. So that is kind of where I'm a little bit concerned. But again, some of those might be unfounded.
No, so okay, it's a valid concern. You can have your own hardware that you want to prefer using over renting hardware from Compute Horde. Well,
at the very least, having own hardware as the fallback if Compute Horde falls over.
Yeah. I think it's better to use yours, but not in the first version. Yeah. But eventually we can do it so that you can use your own hardware as well, in addition to the computer cluster and the RAM pool cluster, and then you can set the order, that you want yours first, or that you want Compute Horde first. And if it run out of capacity or the miners, are offline or something like that, then you use yours. It's a client-side issue. Client-side, I mean the features of the SDK that the subnet owners will use to make it possible to validate. So there's not something like that so far, and this abstraction layer that it will allow the subnet owners to make it their validation code flexible, so that you can run it on local, you can run it on run pod, you can run it on Compute Horde, you can run it somewhere else, right? And then if you can mix them and use more infrastructure, then, or like you can improve the code of the validator, then you will have a higher APY than the subnet owner, and the stake will flow to you, right? And then if we will have a validator that will be doing an excellent job, and he will be finding the miners faster than everybody else every single time, because they throw a lot of compute on it, then they deserve it, right? They deserve to be staked because they're doing a very good job. And that's what probably will happen. Validators now will have to compete both in terms of hardware and in terms of software.
Yeah, although we do say compete as if there is an army of validators. I mean, as I said, it's there's a number of subnets where it's Rizzo and I sort of poking sticks at each other, and we're good mates, but like it's a number that we're the only ones other than the subnet owner. So there's not enough competitors that want to compete in the first place to make it more competitive.
But they
you're
don't
just
have
making
to be
it harder
global.
for the only two that are left.
They don't have to be global validators. Yeah, you can.
Oh yeah, I get that they don't need to be global, but I'm just like on a number of subnets. There's just no one else that wants to validate there. They'll just get just CHK to the owner.
Okay, so if you're mining a subnet and you know the validation code very well and you know you could make it better, now you can make it better. You can launch a small validator. Everybody will see that it's doing a very good job, and stake will start flowing to you.
Okay, so the goal is to try and actually make more validators.
I mean, now people will be able to do it, right? And they will benefit from it, because on Yuma 2, the validator, in order to earn more, it has to be big. It doesn't have to be right. It just has to be big. And now the validator who is right will get the rewards.
Okay, so I just like thinking through this, and it might be bounds on my own understanding. This could potentially blow up crazy, because now as a subnet owner, validators, like the attack surface for a validator becomes even wider, because we see this sometimes. So on 3, miners run validators, and sometimes they're not doing anything crazy, but just by the fact that they're running different software, or even running it in a different mode, like PM2 versus Docker, it messes stuff up. So I just need to understand, like, if we have a world where validators are competing, how does that like change the security boundaries of like designing an incentive mechanism? Because now you're not watching for wake up in anymore. You're watching, is this guy fabricating results? Is he hijacking the protocol to make it look like he's won? Like, I just don't know all the combinations.
Or is he launching a micro validator that votes for himself because he thinks that his new model's about to win, so he tries to get 2 bites at the cherry?
No, I think that one is more on the bonds and kappa level, which is probably is a risk we have. Yes, Rasim, he's running PM2 and it's always breaking stuff. Yeah, but so back to that. I think Cap, that self-voting is a problem we have today. But if validators are competing, then we have more things like fabricated weights. That's what I'm going on. Like, how do you build an incentive mechanism where you have to worry about validators opening up a new class of attacks for validators?
We're all talking about the same particular weight fabricator, aren't we?
Leave me out of
it. Although, one thing, another sort of issue that I know that Ref, you and I are sort of slowly trying to work through as a separate issue, but giving the time sensitivity of Yuma 3, monolithic validators that have not split to multi-hotkey setups are going to be at a pretty sizable risk on this one. So the sooner that we can get out the hotkey splitting, I think that's going to sort of help on that situation. Otherwise, the validators that are on a single hotkey, which they've mostly done to try to simplify the CHKing process to them, because like for instance, Yuma that has gone separate keys, it's confusing a lot of people as to which one they stake to, which one they CHK to, so on and so forth. Versus, for example, Rizzo and I are just stuck to a single key for now. That's going to cause us some serious issues, as we've the two of us have been having problems with Subnet 68, which is very sensitive to how quickly you can set weights, which because of the limitation of one hotkey can only set weights on one subnet in a block, has caused that every now and again, one of us will end up trying to set weights and it won't set weights until the next epoch because of just the timing there, and it kicks us in the ass. So the solution there that we're hoping for is that hotkey splitting.
68 is using Yuma 1, right? So you're not getting any dividends if you're late. And the
issue that we had was vtrust went to 0 and got deregistered.
Yeah, exactly. vtrust. So in Yuma 1, vtrust is dividends. Yeah. So it is your fault. You haven't managed the validator properly because you have not moved to a hotkey that would not be affected by the limits. So
the issue that we have is the broader identity and CHK setup that we've got means that trying to split them out is an incredibly painful process, which as Yuma found, where their APY was useless for weeks and the whole process cost them about 50 grand. That's a bad model to require, hey, put yourself through hell for weeks, lose half of your stakers. They don't have to because half the stakers their own. To suffer through that, which is the reason why we're building that hotkey splitting function. So I mean, I think that the hotkey splitting is going to help with that, and as long as we can get that out in time, I think that that's definitely going to be something that that Rizzo and I will end up using. But it just depends on when that comes out versus when Yuma 3 comes out as to whether or not we're going to get kneecapped.
So,
Ref, I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
I'm worried about the new design that you described because I think that it actually opens up a door to exploit the validation mechanism further. Because right now, as you know, once you're in consensus for a while, basically the dividends normalize out to stake weight, assuming everyone's in consensus. But if you take out that normalization there and give the first guy the bias, then weight copiers actually have an advantage because they can notice patterns in increasing weights from honest validators and then just immediately set the highest weight to those UIDs. And then they actually
and they should be rewarded for it, because if they notice a pattern, and they are able to guess by the pattern what is the true value of that miner, they can, they can't set max weights because then they will sacrifice bonds from the other miners. But if they are able to figure out what's the true quality of the miner faster than everybody else, they are a good validator. They should be rewarded for it.
Not faster, though. The honest validators were the ones that figured out first that that's a good miner. But the weight copying validators can exploit that to the max and then get much higher dividends for it. But if you think that's a good thing, I mean, I'm sure Tau 5 or myself will do that, and I don't think Capricious will be happy about that. But you would be happy about that?
I mean, so a subnet owner sets the rules, and he says we should reward miners for that. And then if the reference implementation provided by the subnet owner is inferior, so it does the go, eventually it rewards the miners for that, but it does it slowly. And then someone comes up with a way to make it faster, whether it's Tau 5 or you or one of the miners or the subnet owner, they will outperform the validator that is slow. And this is good for Bittensor.
It's easier to outperform the honest validators. The honest validators, I mean, Capricious Sage isn't going to go into the validator code and look at the patterns and then automatically set weights to remove the moving averages, basically. But that's very easy for anyone else to do, for a weight copier to do.
So it's going to be up to the subnet owners, right? Subnet owners have to change. Say again?
I said, using the example of Tau 5, since now someone else has said their name, my understanding is that they have a essentially a prediction engine that they're using to predict what the best fake weight is. So it's gone from just copying a single validator to trying to find the consensus retroactive after the fact between multiple validators, to then trying to estimate and predict what the best fake score will be for the next one.
Yes.
If the system is rewarding that, then the system is wrong.
No. So
because ultimately, if there isn't real validators doing the real work that they can build their prediction system off to cheat off of, they wouldn't exist. So why would you want a system that just incentivizes the cheater, at which point the legitimate players, the ones that you're trying to make more competitive, will just go, well, screw this for a joke. They'll just child hotkey away. Then there'll only be two validators left, a subnet owner and someone who's trying to predict the next thing and lie better. That's not a healthy system.
Well,
So,
it's not lying. Yeah, I mean, I understand Ref's point that you are looking at the next best UID and validating faster than the honest validator, essentially. But
they're not validating; they're fabricating it.
You're not fabricating it because you're basing your weights off the honest validator.
you can, if you can predict how the other validators are going to set weights, then there is a problem with the subnet.
You don't need to
already,
predict
right?
it when you can see it on chain. You
Yeah,
can look at their
but
weights
like,
and say,
we have
the
this
weight isn't
problem
good.
already. Yeah, this has been going on for a while, and I think Tau 5 uses hidden Markov models to predict what's going to happen, and subnets are fairly consistent, as I've shown on the slides. That was subnet 7. Yeah, they are extremely predictable. You can see on the metagraph immediately when a miner gets deregistered, and you know exactly what's going to happen, right?
Right.
And
but with that point though, Tau 5 or any weight copier will be able to automatically on deregistration, all honest validators will set 0. They can just set a high weight for that deregistered miner because you know that next miner will get the same weight as everyone else again eventually.
yes.
And then you keep all the bonds there.
The validator of subnet 7 has to change. It's not very good, right? If you can tell,
no matter how you create Yuma Consensus, the subnet owners have to change their validation mechanism so that they can't be predictable, basically, or just add commit reveal. It's not that difficult.
Well, adding commit reveal is not very difficult, yeah. But still, in UID pressured subnets, you will have the information about the registration of the miner. And if a validator is able to determine what the quality of the miner is faster than the validator provided by the subnet owner, then it should be paid better, right?
Perseus, what do you think?
And after 2 years of fighting day in and day out to finally outperform Tau 5, which we're now doing, which has been fantastic. It's been a great win there. If the system that is meant to help get rid of weight copying and increase competition causes us to lose that hard-won victory and be then worse than the weight copier again, like, what's the point, man?
But he's saying the weight copier is actually more honest than the honest validator because it's more accurate.
It might be, yeah. It's better for Bittensor. It's better for the subnet, yeah. If the subnet can detect a good miner faster.
It's a short-term victory though that sacrifices the long-term viability of the network.
So okay, for now, the Yuma is going to be configurable. You can set it to 2. You can set it to 3. The problems that you're talking about, they also exist in Yuma 2. And Yuma 2 is, there are many ways to exploit it, actually. And Yuma 3 doesn't solve the problem of bad validator code, right? It does solve some other problems, though.
Yeah. the one thing I'm just trying to get past is it gives weight copiers more potential to be honest validators. But
Yeah,
but
but
I totally
it
understand your point
gives
that if that's what you
like
want, I mean it's sort of
yeah,
pro weight copying.
it's
I mean
the
you're
I
asking
mean
people to weight copy.
it's the rules are
I picked
set
the wrong
by the
month to
subnet
quit
owner.
drinking.
Yeah. It's the rules are set by the subnet owner, and you're trying to figure out which miner has what level of quality, right? This is the role of the validator, and
Right.
if they will be able to do it by just looking at the weights of the other validators, great. But then you can set commit reveal, right? And then they won't know what the other validators are saying. Now, what we've observed is the model verification subnets, they test the models using 12 samples, using 20 samples, using 50 samples, depends on the subnet. But that gives you a perspective of the quality of the miner, yeah? And then every tempo you can run it again and again and again, and eventually you will get like a true perspective on how good the miner is. But if someone has more GPU and is going to run 200 samples immediately after the miner publishes
If you can't expect people to change the validation code to try to speed it up. What they're just going to do is look at the honest validator and then exacerbate those weights.
Well, I'm exacerbated, so
No, but if they will give higher weights than the honest validator, then they will lose, right? Because they have to take the weights from somewhere else. They can't just add it from nowhere. Weights are like scaled to sum to one.
And for the deployment of this, there's like a hyperparameter where you can just change which Yuma version you want to run.
Yes, but the idea is that Yuma 3 is generally better than Yuma 2. It's less exploitable. So for now, in order to allow for smoother adoption, people can change to one to the other. But Yuma 2, the idea is for it to eventually go away.
Is it live right now that subnet owners can switch?
I think on testnet they can switch, but it's the pull request. I think has been published now. I've seen someone link it on the chat, and as far as I heard, the deployment is scheduled to early next week.
how quickly do you think that we can get the hotkey splitting out so that the two remaining legit validators don't get slaughtered out of the gate?
I don't know. You gotta ask the team that's working on it, right?
Yeah, I'll have to check Eunice on that one. Yeah, I know where the sort of bottleneck is on the moment. I'm trying to sort that one.
So yeah, if the validator is not doing its work very well because it's running on a bad code on a small number of hardware, yeah, and then weight setting doesn't work because of the limits because it's hosted on the same thing. Yuma paid, yeah, as you said, Yuma paid $50,000, and they don't have the limitation anymore.
That doesn't count. They also had a very, very good reason separate from this, which is why they did it. That I won't say because that's a bit mean. But yeah, there was that other problem.
I think like paying $50,000 to re-register all of them, right?
Well,
there
what
had
the
to be a
purchasers
very good reason.
now, they can set a child key take and it goes all to themselves instead of to the nominators now.
Yuma was in a situation where they didn't have a choice about changing their key because a separate unrelated thing had happened that they have since resolved. But yeah, they had a separate crisis that they had to address.
Right. So generally, for security and for scalability and for a few different reasons, validators should be running on different hotkeys on different subnets. And this has been supported for quite a while now, but it was expensive. So now a new feature is being developed to allow the validators to switch it without paying a fee. There is a throttling limit on how often they can do it to prevent abuse, but it
also directly hurts those subnets on detail though. There's a number of detail dashboards that will only list validators that are actively showing that are actually getting vtrust. So if you're CHKing, you don't even show up on that dashboard. So if I'm CHKing to myself, my main key is not even going to show up as an option on a lot of these dashboards. So that's an active sort of penalty there. This is something that that Fish discovered when Detail first went live. His validator wasn't listing on a number of them because he had that exact setup. So that's been another big problem there. It also makes it difficult for validators that are trying to CHK and they want to CHK to a good actor. Yeah, and they know, okay, I know Rizzo's decent, I know Roundtable's decent, but I know this other key, I know that's a dodgy one. If we're all using different keys on every single subnet, it becomes very difficult to find out which key a validator should CHK to, because you can't immediately tell, okay, who am I actually looking at here?
You can I think you can just set an identity on the new hotkey.
What was it? Sorry?
Maybe set identity on the cold key and then read the identity of the cold key, and then you will know who is who.
That's a degree of effort that the people CHKing have not been willing to extend.
If your validator has the best APY, they will find it.
Yes, which is the reason why a lot of them end up CHKing to a wake copier. This is the problem.
And I hope that with Yuma 3, that's not going to be for long, because a wait copier is essentially always going to be delayed, and the smart validators.
The wait copiers are now honest validators.
I don't think I agree with that statement.
Well, we'll see what happens. I'm interested to see how other wait copiers change their code with Yuma 3. I'm pretty sure they'll do exactly
like thief, I guess.
I'm interested to see how the validator code across all the subnets is going to be improved by the miners of those subnets, who they know this code already. They know how to fix it. They know how to improve it. Now they can make the subnet better and earn from it. Yeah. So it's like a big contest for validator improvement. And yes, if the subnet is more dynamic, it's better, yeah? So the subnet owners might realize that incentivizing the miners to make the weights dynamic and unpredictable is like a prerequisite to use Yuma Consensus effectively. Like this kind of, nobody printed the label and said that, if you want to use Yuma Consensus, you need to make sure that weights are dynamic and unpredictable. But that's what it is. If you don't do that, then weight copiers are going to eat you.
There's a lot of subnets so that's not really a practical thing. Like if it's a prediction subnet and you're predicting something that has a longer time frame, the weights are going to remain the same for ages. This is an issue that I think Subnet 48 has had for a while. So they do house price predictions, and from what I understand, they're beating the market leaders. They're doing a better job at it than Zillow, which is great. So it means that they are creating a valuable commodity. But the problem is that it doesn't change very fast. The house doesn't sell in 10 minutes, so they don't. They're longer time frames on setting those weights, on setting those scores, and everything is slow moving, which then creates a situation where, weight copiers go in there and eat their lunch. So it doesn't really help in that sort of situation.
Well, you can set the Yuma Consensus, the shape of the curve that I've shown recently, like on one of the slides, to something that like takes this into account. So Yuma Consensus is there are some parameters that you can tweak. And if the subnet is slow, then to some extent you can still cope with it and you can still kick out wait copiers. Though that subnet, that doesn't sound like it would require a GPU, yeah? It should just say what the price of the house is, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one's just a CPU subnet. It was just the first example that came to mind because it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Sorry,
Which I think means 5 o'clock in the morning for you.
Raf, you never answered the question. Like,
which one?
So the journey to getting miners to give a shit about fixing anything is after you've literally forced them. Like, it's crazy. Like, eventually they will, but first they will hack they will hack everything. They'll almost drive you insane. Now, we need to measure this against, it's already, when you build Bittensor, I love Bittensor, crazy. When you build on Bittensor, you spend a crazy amount of time fighting Bittensor. So now you need to spend twice, like time to building your actual digital good goes up ×2, because now you have to fix it on the miner side and on the validator side. I don't think it's something that I want to do, literally. So, like, while I appreciate that YC3 does have its benefits, can we fix bugs in YC2 and keep it available for people that want to use it?
No, it's impossible. The only way you can fix Yuma 2 is rewrite it to Yuma 3.
No, okay, then explain what are the bugs then? Because you can't, like, this is very this is like, it's, we need to be well informed to be able to make the decision that, okay, this is why we need to use 3. But I haven't heard anything on this call that says, okay, fine, I should spend 6 months, I should spend a year fixing my incentive mechanism as opposed to 6 months. Because
the incentive mechanism like stays the same, yeah?
No,
it's
what
your
I'm
implementation that is broken, right?
No,
and someone can
Ref,
make an implementation that does the same thing faster.
No, you're not understanding what I'm saying. If you give miners the ability to modify validator code, they will hack it. They will hack it. Like I don't know how.
Yeah. It absolutely. A bunch of people will start changing the validator code because validation now becomes much more competitive. Whereas now it's pretty much right.
Yeah, but they're changing it, yeah. But you don't have that terra firma anymore. That okay, this guy's wrong. Because what is right and what is wrong, it becomes a lot harder to decipher. So take for example, on 3.
If validators are changing the validator code, they're no longer validating.
Yeah, exactly, they're mining.
There's no longer a source of truth.
Yuma 3 is designed so that people change the validator code.
Exactly. So take for example, on most subnets, subnet owners can just look at the meta graph and know who's weight copying, because there's no way you should be setting weights on that block. You understand? So now, if we do this, like that's the point. You're not validating on that subnet anymore. You're mining 24/7.
Yeah.
And there's no ground truth, because I don't know. I just don't like it. Cool. But So
it is more challenging.
One second. So it's okay for this to be the only option, but let us know why we cannot fix YC2, because this is a crazy overhead.
Yeah, you've seen how it works, yeah. Where the Keith's validator, he was first to set the weights to a new leader, and then he got penalized for it, and then he switched to the previous miner with everybody else in the same tempo, got penalized again, right? So it is better to be late. right? And so a good validator in Yuma 2, he should slow down and he should just not be the first guy to change to the new leader, right? And then the other validators will realize, oh yeah, we should slow down as well, yeah, because whoever is first gets penalized for it. And then everybody will be slowing. Eventually the subnet will stop, right?
Okay, let me ask, because again, I could be wrong. Do I have this problem on my subnets?
You can fix it with Yuma 2 pretty easily.
No, but I'm trying to get somewhere. Is that okay? It's a problem in Bittensor, but if it's not something I have to deal with, then why am I exposing myself to this whole new dynamic of, like, to me, it's crazy. You understand? And it's not about being selfish. It's about, like, I don't think everyone I think it's something that can happen, but I don't think it's something that, it's so crazy that we need to pick on the extra load of double-sided mining, because that's what it becomes.
Mm-hmm. Right. So your incentive mechanism will have to be
before
a little bit better, and your implementation of the validator will now.
Ref, you're not answering my question.
Okay,
before
so
you assuming that I'm going to YC3, but before I get there, I need to understand what is the big pain I have right now that means I'm fucking my subnet if I don't go to YC3. Because that's all I care about.
I mean, you don't have weight copiers?
Not. We've so normally, I mean, up and down, but I believe it's on balance. Most times, honest validators are making more than weight copiers. But that, like, I'm working on that problem. And for me, investing time in working on it on YC2 is far more, the go-to-market is far better than doing what you're describing. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I think there are times when, like, dude, the validators of my subnet, you guys are kings. But as of recent times, weight copiers are making less. I don't know what it is now. But for me, I'm happy to keep going down that path than doing double-sided, like, validation and double-sided mining.
So you can tweak it, and you can set some parameters for Yuma 2 or Yuma 3 to tailor it to your subnet, right? And so if in your subnet it is not very important, like, you don't think finding a new the new leader is very important, but staying with a new leader is important, then you can tune it like that, right?
Exactly. That's my point. I can mess with the bonds, yeah. But again, so there's two things that this implies, at least from where I'm coming from here, or from what I understand. Again, dude, I probably don't understand this as well as you, but it also implies liquid alpha. You understand? But what if we can really mess up the weight copiers? Because again, one advantage I have with my subnet is that, dude, weights, like, they can be quite erratic. You understand? At least for a long bit of it, like, we're working with that. Like, it's very, very dynamic. So inherently, we have that on our side. You understand? So, like, you bump up the interval, and it really works well. So if I already have this, why am I doing YC3?
So, well, your subnet is a little bit weird because you're training like a distributed model, and this is the product, right? Of the service that you provide. Yuma is more designed for like evaluation, and service subnets are a little bit different, right?
Okay. So you've hit on a very good point. Yeah. If it's not a global and universal problem, we shouldn't be forced to adopt it because the tax we pay for adopting it is totally unnecessary.
I can see that. Yeah. So you would like to stay with Yuma 2 for now?
No, I would love to stay with Yuma 2 until I see a reason for Yuma 3. Until until the cost of Yuma 3 of staying on Yuma 3 on Yuma 2 is you get what I mean.
I get it. So like there is a bunch of those scenarios in the simulator, and so we could go through them and see different things that work well on which versions of Yuma, but it would still take some time, and we've been like 76 minutes now, so I will send the link to the simulator so that people can see it, and you can see by yourself, but also maybe we can do it on OpenDev, which is on Tuesdays, and talk about it more and see the charts.
Absolutely. Let's do a roundup next week, Ref, and this is coming out very soon. It can be turned on, so people will be able to check and see if this is the thing that they want for their subnets. And if there's no pitch, then there's no pitch. But I think there really is, and you'll be the person that can prove that, Ref, on 12 and elsewhere. I think that we're trying to.
I already managed to kick out the weight copiers, but effectively, I had to switch off Yuma 2 and turn it into Yuma 1. And we've done it on like 4 or 5 subnets. We had to disable the bond system because it was being exploited by weight copiers. That was the only thing that he was doing. And the validators didn't realize that now with the new setting, being a slow validator is commercially viable, right? That's what they should do. But they will eventually. So someone will realize that being slow is better, and then the subnets will start slowing. Yeah.
Ref, I agree with most things you're saying. I just think the closing point here that people should understand is that Yuma 3 makes the subnet validation faster, but it also makes weight copiers who artificially make it faster perform better.
Yes. So the problem is that it shouldn't be possible to predict weights because like the entry thing to Yuma is you need to make the weights in the subnet to be unpredictable and dynamic, right? So if they are unpredictable and dynamic, and then the weight copiers won't be able to guess what they are supposed to be. And then if this is not the case, then incentivize the miners to do it. Subnet 12 incentivizes the miners to change their to move their high performance clusters between the UIDs randomly, and we give them the tools to do it. And then the weights are unpredictable, and the weight copiers are unable to guess what it's going to be. You can do it.
My perspective here is that if you're running a validator that is able to predict the weights before others, you're just doing validation better. And that may be the case for some subnets, and maybe it's not the case for others. But I do think that this opens up a new class of sort of hyper competitive validators in the system, in a different type of validation, competitiveness. And every time we make an innovation like this, we can always go back, right? So Ref, you've pulled out YC2 and put YC1 in. That's fantastic. We'll have YC2 there for teams that like it. Fish, that might be you. And we'll have YC3 and YC4. It's really great to have everyone up on stage chatting about this, and we should do this again. These are the people that know validation just about as good as anybody else on Bittensor. So it was awesome to have Capricious you up on stage. A rare event, distributed. Thanks for coming up. Fish, of course. playing devil's advocate. And Ref, great performance here. And there's a lot more than just Yuma 3 that you've been working on. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let's end it there.
Hopefully, with the use of Subnet 12, Subnet owners will be able to do quick validation that cannot be outperformed by wait copiers. That's the idea.
Yes. Okay,
All
guys.
Right. Oh,
let's leave.
Sorry, but I have one question. Now that you say that, that is actually our problem, and how we fix this, is that the quicker we make the protocol, the validator, the base validator, be able to validate quicker, the more wait copiers lose out.
mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's the same problem, but I think making it a competition between validators creates so much more of a burden on subnet design than just writing better validators.
But it used to be like that. Yuma 2 already was a competition. It had a bug which only allowed the big validator to win.
Okay, so
and all the small validators were just like, even if they were right, and they, according to what you can read in Yuma paper, and there is a simulator of Yuma written by Isabella, and in these, they win more. But
okay, but Ref, you did not answer the question of what the bug is. You understand? Because what I'm asking you, is that, okay, what is this bug in this version that means, we can't do this?
Yeah, there's like 6 of them.
Okay, so how do we make that decision?
Yeah. So let's talk about it on Tuesday. So there is an open dev call. Whoever wants to join, they're welcome. And so we will meet on another channel here, and then we will go through those scenarios and talk about them and compare different versions of Yuma and see how they behave. All right?
Sounds good, Ref.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, let's do that then.
Looking forward to it.
Great. Okay. Well, if Ref will let me end the call, let's end the call. Thanks, Ref.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks all. See you.